Today at Best for Brides we will talk about everything you need to know about fairy tale weddings. Subscribe to our channel Best for Brides for further updates. One of those enchanted wedding themes that we always fantasized about as young girls is the fairy tale wedding theme. The majority of us were picturing our favorite princess looks, like Cinderella in her white gown. Now that we are grown-ups, it only makes sense that we would like to give this wedding look a more sophisticated touch while maintaining its allure. But what exactly qualifies as a fairy tale wedding theme? The enchanted and magical wedding themes, as well as the fairy tale wedding theme, are sometimes confused. The fairy tale wedding is, in my opinion, more princess-like, with a regal flair and a lot of flowers. There is a lot of moss, whimsical fairy lights, wood elements, glass ornaments, and drifting flowers in enchanting wedding themes, such as the woodland theme. With a ton of fairy lights, the enchanting wedding theme will be more akin to a fairy tale wedding. Due to the fact that a fairy tale wedding requires the addition of numerous components, it can be more expensive. And the majority of these decorations will consist of large bouquets and arrangements of flowers, candles, columns, gold and silverware, and crockery. Let's take a deeper look at the various components and possibilities for the fairy tale wedding theme. What is important to know about the topic of a fairy tale wedding? I've quickly covered some of the components that are frequently present at a fairy tale wedding as well as the distinctions between these three types of nuptials. There is no average for any wedding style, so whatever gives you the impression of a fantasy wedding counts. Nevertheless, I can make a few important recommendations for your wedding style. Additionally, unless you really want to, you don't have to go overboard with your fairy tale wedding theme and have the budget for it. Lanterns are a good example of a main feature that you may accentuate while adding other decor to complete your wedding theme. If you're having trouble coming up with the perfect fairy tale wedding theme, go to Disney for ideas. Roses, paper lanterns, fairy lights, outdoor lanterns, gold things, and other wedding-related decor can all be found in Disney fairy tale films. Simply conduct your study and prepare your wedding budget in advance to discover how much money is truly accessible to get your wedding style across. Styling your fairy tale wedding theme need not be difficult. Finding a place fit for a magical wedding. Find a wedding location that satisfies your magical requirements rather than spending extra time and money sprucing up a venue from top to bottom in fairy tale details. Even if the most recent trends tend to favor a more rustic, minimalistic, and modern aesthetic, fairy tale wedding settings are still very much in style. If you have the ideal location, you don't necessarily need to spend a lot on your fantasy wedding theme. Number 1. Find a fairy tale castle. I'm not referring to the old castles that are scattered around some unknown region's landscape. There are locations that were constructed in a castle-like form and are intended expressly to host your fairy tale wedding theme. You can use Google to find nearby fairy tale wedding venues to get a sense of what is currently available. Number 2. Is there a garden there? A fantastic fairy tale wedding location will probably also have a garden or other space where you may take a stroll, especially at night when there are fairy lights and lanterns. Your coffee table wedding album will look great with the inclusion of this lovely evening photo shoot. Number 3. To be or not to be an equestrian. I already said that you can rent horses or hold your wedding at an estate with stables. Horses are almost like creatures from fairy tales with their own air of mysticism and magic, but they are not required to be present at your fairy tale wedding. When looking for a fantasy wedding venue with horses, it might be challenging to find a location that has all the necessary aspects in one location. However, if you do your research, you might just be that fortunate. Number 4. Think about getting married in a forest. Although forest locations are better suited for enchanted wedding themes, fairy tale weddings can still be held there. It also depends on how you dress it up and whether you intend to hold the ceremony and reception there separately or together. Fortunately, forest wedding venues are familiar with the challenges of putting up a wedding location in a forest, so the planner should be able to advise you on what will work and what should be avoided. Number 5. If all else fails. Take into account a wedding hall out of a fantasy. If finding the ideal castle, garden, or equestrian estate proves to be difficult, consider a regular hall that can be dressed up or a venue that has a hall designated for fairytale. Like locations, a hall should have ornate accents and a couple of mirrors against the walls. Additionally, there will be chandeliers because they contribute to the regal, enchanted atmosphere that this theme aims to evoke. Number 6. Verify the available decor at the wedding location. Since you probably need to hire a lot of decor and buy a lot of flowers to create this look, fairytale weddings can be on the more expensive side of wedding themes, as I'm sure I've said. However, you can take use of extra decor that most venues provide, either for an additional fee or as part of the venue hire fee. Ask to inspect the available decor before making a venue reservation so you can determine whether it will be less expensive than hiring your own decor. Number 7. Are candles, lanterns, and fairy lights permitted at the location? The usage of candles and other lights is one of the essential components of a fairytale wedding. Because they constitute a fire risk, some venues forbid the use of candles, but you can get by with battery-operated models, which will still function just as well. For a more enchanted atmosphere, don't forget to add lanterns and fairy lights both inside and outside. 11 sorts of fairytale wedding locations. The range of options for fairytale wedding locations is extensive, but these are the most well-liked options. Almost any wedding venue may be transformed if you have the resources and the wedding money to do it. Here are some techniques to make an unattractive wedding site gorgeous. Speaking of modifying wedding locations, let's examine some examples of fairytale wedding venues. Number 11. Castle. You don't need a castle in the traditional sense, as I briefly mentioned in the last section. There are wedding locations that resemble castles that are dedicated to fairytale wedding themes. Number 10. A manor. A house is a little bit inferior than a castle, but it can nevertheless be equally impressive and enchanted. You may need to put a slight upper limit on the number of wedding guests you invite in order to accommodate everyone in, depending on the size of the venue for your ceremony and reception. Number 9. Villa. For smaller fairytale weddings, a villa is ideal, and there are many stunning villas available that will suit well with your fairytale wedding theme. Number 8. A ranch with horses. Horses once more, please. However, an equestrian estate that also advertises as a wedding location will be ideal for your wedding pictures. Don't you believe that horses and fairy tales go together so well? Number 7. A forest setting. I quickly mentioned how enchanted wedding themes are more common in forest wedding sites, but that it is still very possible to have a fairytale wedding. Number 6. A garden setting. A magnificent garden with spring or summer blooming has a fanciful, even magical feel to it. If you do find a garden that fits your fantasy aesthetic, think about the time of year as well as the external conditions before entering. Number 5. A gazebo. A gazebo is a wonderful addition to any kind of magical wedding theme, even though it is more suited for your wedding ceremony. And bravo if you can locate a dream wedding location with an additional gazebo on the grounds. Number 4. A tent-like building. You can use temporary shade and tents almost any place. You simply need to select the area to set it up in and the transportation arrangements to bring in all the other components of your wedding's theme. A big, lush grass will do just fine for a storybook wedding. Keep in mind to use the outdoor lighting. Number 3. A huge church building. It's very princess-like to get married in a huge church hall. These kinds of locations will always remain even though weddings and venues are moving away from conventional ways of getting married. Number 2. A terrace outside. Your wedding ceremony will be ideal on an outside terrace. If you selected a location that is appropriate for this, it is very probable that they also have a reception space available. Number 1. A wedding venue. Nowadays, many couples prefer light, airy outdoor weddings, but a tastefully decorated wedding venue may make the ideal backdrop for any fairy tale wedding theme. This is it for today's video. Do let us know what do you think about it. Subscribe to Best for Brides for more videos like this.